Another transfer, huh? My husband Oliver came home, clearly down in the dumps. So, where's the next assignment? It's actually near my parents' house. What? The term is about a year, so I was thinking maybe we could live with them for a while. The proposal to move in with his parents caught me off guard. My name is Bella. I'm 33 and work part-time while taking care of the house. Oliver's job involves a lot of transfers, so I stick with part-time work. Each time we move, I have to find a new part-time job from scratch. But I knew that when we got married. I find excitement in exploring different places, and we've been married for 4 years now. Our favorite pastime is to discover local spots and visit them together on Oliver's days off. His next assignment is close to his parents' home. We've always rented apartments, and finding a new place is a hassle. If we're moving again in a year, living with his folks isn't a terrible idea. That's how I justified it to myself. I think we get along with my in-laws, at least on the surface. We don't see them often, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. And my father-in-law Aiden is usually away for work, so we haven't had many deep conversations. As for my mother-in-law Isabella, she's a busybody and a chatterbox, to put it nicely. Whenever we visit, she talks about some neighbor, and I have no clue who they are or why their story should interest me. I just laugh it off mostly. But I figured we could tough it out for a year. Boy, was I wrong. A month later, Oliver and I headed to his parents' home. We're saying goodbye to a place we've lived for 2 years. With that thought, we got into the car. We knew his job required a lot of moving, so we kept our belongings to a minimum. So minimal that even the moving company was surprised. When we arrived, Aiden and Isabella greeted us warmly. "Thank you for having us." I handed over the gift and bowed my head. Aiden responded gruffly, while Isabella gladly accepted the gift with a smile. The next morning, I woke up to find that Aiden and Isabella were already up. "Bella, you're just waking up now? Oliver will be late if you don't hurry up." Even though she said just now, it's only 5:30 because my husband leaves early. Confused, I tried to help with breakfast, but Isabella scolded me. "Stop giving Oliver all that caffeine, it's bad for him." My husband always has coffee before leaving for work, so when I went to make coffee, she criticized me like that. As he prepared to leave for work, my husband came to my defense. "Mom, I asked for the coffee. I can't think straight without it." Hearing this, Isabella glared at me, but broke into a smile. "Fine, then I'll make it." Saying so, she snatched the coffee pot from my hands and started brewing it. From the get-go, things weren't going well. I optimistically thought I would get used to it eventually. That notion was shattered just 2 months later. I had started a part-time job about half a month after we moved. Isabella was a housewife. When I got home in the evening, only Isabella was there. She approached me and said, "Do you really need to work part-time?" "Huh?" I couldn't help but ask her to clarify. "People talk, you know. It doesn't look good for a wife to be out working." I was puzzled and surprised that people still think that way. I couldn't respond directly, so I just laughed it off. When I told my husband that night, he said he'd also talked to Isabella about it, which relieved me. But it ended up making Isabella even angrier. "You told Oliver? What kind of wife are you?" I had no intention of tattling, but looking back, I feel like that's when Isabella started seeing me as an enemy. I thought I was managing to get by, skirting around Isabella 2 months after moving into my in-laws' home. But then, out of the blue, we received startling news. Oliver's brother and his wife were expecting a child. They said they wanted to have the baby here since her parents live far away. Aiden and Isabella were more than happy to have Lily move in. And so, starting from the next week, Lily, my sister-in-law, became our new housemate. Bella, could you please get Lily a drink quickly? And buy a blanket, we don't want her getting cold. Ever since Lily moved in, it's like I've become the housemaid. If I cook, I get told it's not fit for a pregnant woman. If I clean, it's, you can't let a pregnant woman do that, hurry up. All the household chores are on me, while Lily either snacks, watches TV, or scrolls through her phone. I understand that being pregnant isn't easy, so that's okay. But she won't even look me in the eyes, let alone say thank you. Isabella takes care of Lily, serving her drinks and snacks. Yet, all these are items I've bought. It feels unfair. I was putting up with it because we're living under their roof. But one day, Lily said to me, "It must be nice living with kind-hearted Isabella." Kind-hearted Isabella? What are you talking about? I swallowed those words and brushed it off with a forced smile. Still, Isabella responded to Lily, smiling. You say the sweetest things. Well, sure. I felt isolated, but given that we're staying with them and she's pregnant, I just let it slide. And then the incident happened. Bella, what are you doing? Hurry up! Lily had a prenatal checkup and I had to drive her there. Neither Aiden nor Isabella can drive, so we had no choice but to use my car. It would have been fine, except they only told me 30 minutes before we had to leave. As I was getting ready to go to my part-time job, Isabella frantically told me to take the day off. But I'm already running late. So what? It's just a part-time job. We'll be fine if you're not there. Now bring the car around. It's just a part-time job? I was irritated for a moment. You don't make much from your part-time job anyway. You can afford to miss it. You can't have kids, so Lily's child will be the first grandchild, get it? The first grandchild, the one we've all been waiting for. Is this what they call grandbaby fever? I couldn't help but smirk, recalling an article I read online. Normally, I'd lose my temper by now, but my husband's job contract lasts only 1 year. Even if I started looking for a new apartment now, with less than 10 months left, there's not much point in making a move. So I had been gleefully watching Isabella dote on her grandchild-to-be, counting down the days until I could move out. But then her next words made my blood boil. So, while we're at it, why don't you get yourself checked out, Bella? What do you mean? An infertility test, of course. You haven't done one, have you? If you're infertile, you might as well leave this house. We don't need a daughter-in-law who can't give us grandchildren. I gave Isabella a little pushback, trying to hide my frustration. Well, I'm off to my part-time job. I heard her yelling something behind me, but I ignored it and went to work. The unfair treatment continued. Isabella took meticulous care of Lily while constantly bossing me around. I thought about talking to my husband, but didn't want to be accused of tattling, so I just went on listening to them without much thought. Isabella and Lily seemed to have conspired against me. They only picked on me when Aiden and Oliver weren't around. Aiden, though gruff, seemed to be on my side, and Isabella sensed it. She acted like the perfect mother-in-law when he was around. Only 3 months left until Lily gives birth. I have to hang in there. That's what I kept telling myself. Bella, please hurry up and hang the laundry. And clean up. Look, it's dirty over there. Sister-in-law, we're out of drinks. Go buy some, will ya? The same old scenario when Aiden and Oliver left for work. The two of them barking orders while sitting comfortably. Bella, take this to Lily's room, quick! Isabella pushed a large sofa towards me. Wait, I have to move this by myself? Just as I started dragging it, I sensed someone at the front door. Oliver. My husband was standing there, still in his suit. That's when Isabella hurled some laundry from the living room. "I told you to clean this up." Seeing this, my husband completely lost it. Seems he came back to grab something he forgot, but that was the least of his concerns now. "Mom, what's going on?" I followed him into the living room, where Isabella looked at me with a surprised expression. "Well, Bella said she could handle the chores, so I left them to her." Isabella tries to put on a brave face, but when my husband confronts her, she gets unreasonably angry. "Look, we're the ones providing a roof over your heads. You should be serving us as your landlords. Besides, I'm about to be a grandmother to my first grandchild. Shouldn't you have chosen a wife who can have kids?" My husband's boiling at this point, but I step him before he can explode. "Enough is enough. We appreciate the place to stay, but we're paying our share, right? If you're going to bring up money, then at least let me work part-time. You had me quit my job to take care of Lily, remember? Also, a child is a blessing. Stop comparing us." "What's up with that attitude? You're living off us." "Fine, we'll leave, like right now." I look at my husband and he nods in agreement. Luckily, he has the day off tomorrow. We decide to pack up and leave as soon as possible. To start, my husband and I dropped by my parents' house to explain the situation and leave some of our belongings there. My parents offered a suggestion to my apologetic husband. "Why don't you live here if Oliver can still commute to work?" My childhood home is a two-family house where my parents and grandparents used to live. Since my grandparents passed away, the second-floor living space has been vacant. They said we can move in right away with some cleaning, so my husband gratefully accepted, and we decided to live there. Though the commute for my husband got a bit longer, it wasn't unbearable. Life for the two of us was comfortable. A week later, a call comes from Lily. "Bella, you need to come pick me up from my prenatal checkup." I sigh. "Why should I have to do that? You can take a taxi." "That's a waste of money." "Well, I don't want to waste my money picking you up either." I've had enough and tell her what's on my mind. "Why should I pick you up when you treat me like it's a given, without any gratitude?" I hang up the phone. Another week goes by, and there's another call, but it's from Isabella this time. "Yes." "Bella, please come back." I am taken aback by her sudden plea. "It's Lily. She's treating me like her personal servant. Today she even threw food at me because she didn't like it." Ugh. So what do you expect me to do? I hold back the words at the tip of my tongue and just let her vent. Plus, she says she's staying here for a while after the baby's born, and I'm supposed to take care of everything. I can only sigh. "Hello, are you even listening?" No, not really. I really want to give her a piece of my mind, but I reluctantly engage in the conversation. "Isn't it great? You get to take care of your first grandchild. How wonderful." "What? What are you talking about? Why do I have to do all the cumbersome tasks like changing diapers and giving baths? That's a mom's job. That's how it was done in our time." I can't keep it in any longer. With that thought, I unleash all the pent-up frustrations I've been holding back. "Look, I don't care how things were done back in the day. Can't you handle simple childcare? Isn't this your adorable grandchild? I took care of that not-so-adorable Lily and her child, you know. Taking care of a grandchild shouldn't be a big deal. Besides, Lily is worse. She throws away the food I make if she doesn't like it, or throws the towels I bought her when she says she doesn't like them. Babies don't do such things, so you'll be fine. Lucky you, it's your first grandchild. You should be able to handle it." After saying all that, I somehow started to feel good about myself. "Since you've been using me all along, why doesn't Lily contribute for a change?" I knew this would happen once I was gone. Lily, being the youngest and the cherished daughter-in-law who's 5 years younger, is probably adored at home. She must feel entitled to get things from others. You may have conspired against me when I was around, but didn't you see this coming? Oh, by the way, I got a call from Lily. She says you aren't listening to her or helping her at all. Birds of a feather, I guess. Enjoy each other's company." And with that, I hung up the phone, chuckling. After that, I hear Isabella has been struggling with taking care of Lily and her first grandchild. And believe it or not, I just found out I'm pregnant. My husband is thrilled, and we're both looking forward to our baby's arrival.
Next customer, please come this way. The cash registers were getting crowded, so I quickly opened the one next to me and guided customers. After a while, the congestion was resolved, and I returned to stocking shelves. "Mary, you're amazing for being able to ring up customers so quickly." The person who spoke to me was another part-time employee. In this supermarket, there are high school students and many people of the same age group as me, so I enjoy working here. My name is Mary. I'm a 45-year-old part-time housewife. I've been working at this part-time supermarket for about 10 years. When my child entered elementary school, I decided to find a job and applied for a part-time position at a local supermarket that was recruiting. There were many housewives like me, and the manager is also a parent, so it's a good environment that understands child rearing. I've been working here for 10 years. Before I knew it, I became one of the oldest part-timers. There are more familiar faces among the customers, and many people greet me, and I get along well with other part-timers and part-time high school students. However, I never expected that something like this would happen. One day, we were told that our manager, who we all appreciated, was being transferred, and we were all disappointed. But the manager was transferred to the headquarters, which seemed like a promotion route. He was competent, so it was inevitable. Although it was a shame, we all congratulated him on his promotion and sent him off. The next manager was from the headquarters and did not know much about the field. No one mentioned it, but being a manager from the headquarters seemed like a demotion. He was nagging and incompetent, and the atmosphere in the store deteriorated. According to other part-timers, the president's wife seems to favor young, handsome managers. The manager probably thought that he could benefit from being liked by the president's wife. I often saw him talking to her. The new manager's reputation was bad, but the president's wife was the worst. She complained about every part-timer. However, she talked to male employees and high school boys working part-time with a sweet voice. Although we part-timers were dissatisfied, no one dared to complain to the president's wife. Eventually, some part-time housewives and student part-timers started quitting. Just as I started considering looking for another part-time job, I became the target of the president's wife. "You've been working at the store for a long time, right? How about your child? Already a college student? Which college?" I was surprised to be asked such a question suddenly. "Yes, I've been working here since the previous manager." I didn't want to talk about my child, so I tried to dodge the question. Then the president's wife said this: "You look incompetent. You probably didn't even go to a decent college, did you?" That remark hit me in the heart. But just then, the register area got crowded, so I nodded to the president's wife and quickly got in line. Actually, I only graduated from middle school. I was bullied in high school. Tried my best to hang in there, but eventually couldn't go anymore and quit during the summer of my 3rd year. Since then, I'd been living as a part-timer, met my husband at a part-time job, got married, and lived in a world completely unrelated to educational background. But the president's wife seems to be the complete opposite of me. She brags about being a graduate of a prestigious university, even when nobody is listening. But for some reason, she stubbornly refuses to mention the name of the university. I thought it was strange, but since I wasn't particularly interested, I always let it slide. The president's wife probably had a preconception that housewives working part-time at a supermarket don't have high educational backgrounds. In fact, I once heard her talking about it with the store manager. Does she want to look down on us? Other part-timers also said they were asked about their education by the president's wife. The next day, as I was working, as usual, the president's wife came to the store again for some reason. "Excuse me." I looked up when the president's wife addressed me. She looked down on me and laughed, as if something was funny. Somehow, controlling my irritated emotions, the president's wife opened her mouth. "You're a middle school graduate, aren't you? I didn't think you went to college, but I never thought you were just a middle school graduate. It's amazing that you can work with that kind of educational background." I wondered where she heard that from, and remembered that yesterday the store manager was checking part-timers' resumes in the office. I thought the manager should know about the employees, but I guess that information went to the president's wife. Knowing that I was a middle school graduate, the president's wife told other employees about it for some reason. Frankly, it was annoying. I had no intention of faking my education, but I couldn't understand the nerve of someone who would go around saying that I was a middle school graduate. My part-time colleagues didn't seem to care and acted as usual, but since then, the president's wife would always bring up that I was a middle school graduate. "Maybe you wouldn't understand since you're a middle school graduate. Since you're a middle school graduate, at least do some cleaning." That was the president's wife's catchphrase. I don't have to work here to be told things like that. That's what I started to think. A few days later, the president's wife appeared at the store again. Just seeing her made me irritated. As I sighed and tried to walk past her, she was smirking at the cardboard box storage area. It was a place where we didn't go because the supplier would come to pick up the boxes. But for some reason, the president's wife seemed to be trying to make me clean it up on purpose. She said, "People like you should be covered in garbage. You bottom-dwelling middle school graduates are just salary thieves." This was the back room, away from the customer's eyes. I had always been able to bear it because I was usually approached in the sales area, but that day, I couldn't hold back my pent-up anger. "Excuse me, but I think I'm working for the salary I'm getting. I'm working properly, and education doesn't matter, right?" The president's wife looked a little surprised, perhaps not expecting to be talked back to. "Why don't you be a little helpful to the store if you're here? We never know what you're doing here. Are you just here to look down on us? You must have a lot of free time." I continued without caring about the other employees passing by and entering my field of vision. The president's wife glared at me. Unlike a lowlife like you, I'm busy. I'm taking time out of my busy schedule to come to this store." "Is that so? Then what are you doing at the store? You're just chatting with the manager, flirting with the male employees and male high school part-timers, and looking down on us, aren't you?" As I calmly stated this, the president's wife's face turned bright red with anger. "Just by being here, I make the store more lively, don't I? You should be more grateful." I couldn't help but laugh at her words. Do you really think that? None of us employees or customers think that way. It's interesting how there are people who have educational backgrounds but are useless in the field. I vented all the resentment I had been harboring from being looked down on. The president's wife must not have expected to be told such things. She could only come up with cliched retorts. Do you think you can work here after talking to me like that? So I responded without hesitation. Then I'll quit. The president's wife laughed at me mockingly. It'll save on our labor costs. I returned the smile. Yes, that's right. Good for you. I then headed to the locker room. When I entered the locker room, the part-timer who had passed by the scene earlier was there, and I told her everything that had happened. Mary, are you quitting? She was sad because we had been working part-time together for years. Ever since the manager changed, it hasn't been fun, and it's like we're only working out of obligation, right? Many people have quit, but they don't hire more staff because it's a waste of labor costs. So our workload keeps increasing. I can't do it anymore. I guess that's true. I left the locker room and went to where the manager and president's wife were talking. Then, that's a quick story. Seeing me, the president's wife laughed. I heard that the junior high school graduate is quitting here. I wonder if there's a place for a junior high school graduate to work. The manager also laughed, so I told them off. Even if I have nowhere else to work, I won't come back here. I'll return the uniform next week. Thank you for everything. I felt strangely refreshed as I left the supermarket. The following week, when I went to return my uniform, the store was noisy. The manager seemed to be getting scolded by several customers. There seemed to be a commotion near the cash register. Maybe there was a mistake in the transaction. The customer's anger seemed extraordinary. However, there was nothing I could do since I had already quit. So I went to the office to leave my uniform. As I approached the office, I heard the president's wife's voice. Reluctantly, I opened the door and saw the former manager there as well. Manager! Even though he was now working at the headquarters and not as the manager, I accidentally called him that out of habit. The former manager seemed to have been talking to the president's wife, but she quickly left the office. What happened at the register? There seemed to be some trouble. The former store manager tells me that there have been a series of complaints at the store lately. It seems that after I quit, other part-timers and part-time students all decided to quit at once. The manager was apparently working on the sales floor, but he didn't know how to stock shelves or operate the register, so he received complaints from customers. Today's incident involved the president's wife, who was talking to a male employee on the sales floor, and a customer mistook her for an employee and asked her a question. I don't know anything about that. The president's wife apparently brushed the customer off. The manager then appeared and accidentally revealed that she was the president's wife, making the situation worse and causing more complaints, while the register area became very crowded. At this time, all the part-timers had quit, so employees and the manager who don't usually work at the register had to do so. And there were many mistakes. The register was so slow that customers started getting irritated, and it seemed the manager was being scolded. The former store manager asked me why I quit, so I answered honestly. He then told me that he heard that the president's wife did not graduate from college. He didn't know the details, but had heard she was a high school graduate. So what was that educational condescension about? Could it be that the president's wife is looking down on people with the delusion that she is highly educated? That made her seem even more dangerous. 2 weeks later, the supermarket where I used to work was deserted. It was unusual for so few customers to be there at this time. Well, it's not surprising after all those complaints. As I was thinking that, I was approached from behind. It was the former store manager. After exchanging greetings, he told me about a new store opening one station away.
Mary, would you like to work there?
It seemed an employee the former manager had trained was being promoted to the new store manager. I could trust that person. I nodded and contacted my former part-time friends. When my part-time job at the new store was confirmed, some of my former part-time friends were there too, which made me feel relieved. The manager was understanding, and I felt like I could get along well with the other employees and new part-timers. The new store tried something different, handling local side dishes and bread, which was well received by customers. I began to see familiar faces from the previous store, and the new store had a successful start. According to the employees, the old store was very quiet, and the manager was scolded quite a bit at the head office meetings. Many people quit soon after being hired as part-timers, and there was always a shortage of staff. I found a new part-time job quickly, and since I was able to work happily like before, I thought everything was settled. However, about a month after starting work at the new store, the president's wife appeared before me. Well, she's the president's wife, so it wouldn't be strange for her to be at any store. But she seemed to have come specifically to see me. I heard a junior high school dropout is working at our store again, so I came to check. I could only sigh. What's wrong? I'm not doing anything bad.
Do you realize that because of you, the other store is in big trouble now?
Why is it my fault? I didn't do anything wrong. Rather, isn't the president's wife the one committing power harassment?
You made all the other employees quit, didn't you?
The president's wife suddenly got angry. It's completely unreasonable. The part-timer and the manager who used to work at the previous store noticed me and tried to help. But I stopped them. I, a middle school graduate, can't make all the employees quit. Why not ask them why they quit? Well, you can figure it out without asking. The part-timers nodded in agreement with my words. Shall I tell you if you don't understand? You look down on us because of our educational background. And the manager doesn't understand anything, only talks. No one wants to work part-time while experiencing power harassment. When I said that, the president's wife raised her voice again.
Power harassment? Are you trying to frame me without any evidence?
The moment the president's wife tried to grab me, the manager intervened.
Can you please stop doing that to our part-timers?
The manager's position would be compromised by saying such a thing to the president's wife. I was about to say I'm fine, but the manager said firmly,
I am the manager of this store, and it's my job to protect the employees. I'll fulfill my role, whether you're the president's wife or not.
Then applause came from the other part-timers. The president's wife finally lowered her hand that was trying to grab me. I took a deep breath, took out my smartphone, and said, I have evidence of power harassment. The president's wife glared at me. I played a video. It showed the president's wife yelling at another part-timer at the previous store for no reason. And it wasn't just one or two instances. The president's wife's face changed color. Then, the other part-timers came forward. Among them was a video of me being insulted for being a middle school graduate. At that time, we had conspired to collect evidence if anyone was experiencing power harassment from the president's wife. We didn't go so far as to file a lawsuit, but the videos were shared among part-time friends, so we had several at hand. Manager, we're going to sue her. When I said that, the other part-timers and the manager nodded. Naturally, the president's wife was furious with the manager. What's wrong with you? Do you think it's okay to say that to me? You're fired. Fired. Hearing that, I looked at the president's wife and laughed. Oh, I recorded that too, so we'll protect the manager who protected us. Hearing this, the president's wife changed her expression again and turned on her heels. It seemed she intended to escape. I called out to her back. There are more important things than education, right? Sometimes your humanity is more important when you enter society. Are you focusing on someone's education because you have a complex about it? The president's wife turned around and said, How did you know that? It seemed she had inadvertently admitted it. I laughed. The other employees laughed, and the president's wife, realizing her self-destruction, left at a speed I'd never seen before. After that, we decided to really sue the president's wife. We had videos taken by the part-timers, and the manager, who had been favored by the president's wife, admitted that he had been covering up her power harassment for his own safety, so we had solid evidence. The president's wife couldn't escape, and we were able to receive compensation. Then word spread to other stores, and many similar complaints were raised. The president's wife was sued for compensation, and the president, who found out about her behavior for the first time, was furious and told her to pay it back by working. It is a locally owned supermarket, so the president and his wife's house is also local. When I witnessed the president's wife working angrily at a nearby drugstore, I couldn't help but laugh. Since then, we have been working hard today under a trustworthy manager.
Oh, there are poor people here. I can't stand to eat in the same place as these people. Let's complain to the waiter and ask him to kick them out. I agree. If we're around these people, we'll look low class. My sister and her husband, whom we ran into on our New Year's trip to Hawaii, decided that we were poor, and they bullied us. They would say, "Don't ignore us, you ugly bitch. This is no place for someone like you. You need to get the hell out of here." You're not my sister. What? You forgot about me, your cute little sister? I know you're still upset that I took your fiancé. You're so jealous of me. I heard you're still working. Working even after you're married? Poor you. The two of them started making fun of not only me, but also my husband. I could put up with it if it was just about me, but I couldn't stand listening to them make fun of my husband. I had had enough, and I sprang out of my chair, but my husband stood in front of me to stop me. My name is Katie. I work as a medical receptionist at a general hospital. I didn't have any special skills, but when I thought about my future, I knew I wanted to help people. That's when I decided to work in the medical field. After 2 years of studying at a vocational school, I found a job at a general hospital. My parents recognized my hard work and were proud of me for choosing a career in medical administration. But my sister's reaction was the exact opposite. She said, "This is a job that anyone could do, and it's perfect for you." She laughed. My sister Miley has always been like that. She looks down on me and makes fun of me on a regular basis. Miley is pretty. When we were in junior high, people called her the prettiest girl in her grade. She gets a lot of compliments, and she's always boasting about her looks. She calls me ugly and acts like I'm pitiful. If it seems like anyone can do it, I thought maybe I should do things only I can bring to the table. I try to smile all the time and be really polite and more cheerful than others. It sounds easy, but it's very difficult. But I was determined to do my job well, and I told myself that I will not fail. I was very happy to know that there were people out there who watched me and recognized it. You're always energetic. Dr. Ken Smith, a doctor at the hospital, spoke to me. I rarely interact with doctors, but Dr. Smith knew my name. Your smile always heals me, Katie. I thought it sounded a tiny bit inappropriate, but it was nice to be recognized. After that, we talked whenever we saw each other at the hospital, and a little while after that, Dr. Smith asked me out. After a few dates, he confessed his feelings for me and asked me to be his girlfriend. Shortly before my 22nd birthday, he asked me to marry him. Will you marry me? Ken proposed to me. I said yes, and we made plans to meet each other's parents. I'm glad I chose a job that helps people. I was happy to work at the hospital, but my happiness was shattered in a split second out of nowhere. Don't worry about coming to my parents to meet them. 2 days before the day I was supposed to meet them, he sends me this out of the blue. I was confused, so I wrote back immediately. Does it not work for their schedule or something? We can reschedule for another day. But Ken responded and said things that I never would have expected. I said don't worry about coming. I'm breaking up with you, Katie. For a second, it felt like time stopped. I didn't know what he was saying. I immediately called him. What do you mean? You met my parents. Just act like it never happened. What's wrong? You said you'd keep working after we got married, and you didn't listen to me. Well, I realized that I'd rather have an obedient woman than someone like you. It's like he was a different person. I was, of course, shocked that he broke up with me, but I couldn't believe how he changed all of a sudden. What? You said my smile heals you. I can't believe you're breaking up with me after we got engaged. Huh? That was just something I said to make you feel good. I chose you because you were the youngest, decent-looking woman at the time. You're horrible. I'm a doctor. There are better women out there more suitable for a doctor like me. Who? I had a bad feeling, and it was way worse than I thought it could be. I'm going to marry Miley. I don't need you anymore. Miley? I should have gone to your parents' house earlier. I could have met her a while ago instead of wasting a year of my life. I started thinking, when Ken came to my house to meet my parents, Miley was there too. She wasn't supposed to be there, but she stayed on purpose to meet my fiancé. At first, she seemed ready to make fun of him, but as soon as she realized that Ken is a doctor, her attitude changed. She spoke like she was flirting, but I had no idea that she was trying to steal my fiancé. I couldn't believe it. I was so mad at Ken and Miley, and I was also mad at myself for letting them push me around. I was speechless. Then Ken said mockingly, "You're so shocked you can't even say anything. You know, a woman like you won't find someone else to marry. But I'm sorry. I've already made up my mind that I'm going to marry young, pretty Miley. I won't change my mind even if you beg." Who would beg you? Don't pretend like you're okay. It's obviously not true, and it's not a good look. What? Unlike you, Miley is very obedient and cute, and she said she will be a housewife after we get married, just like I asked her. I was irritated by his cheerful voice. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. Listen, I'm just going to be honest. Who would beg to be with a man like you? I've had it. I'm glad we're breaking up. I'm even more glad that I didn't marry a man like you. Well, you're just not cute. I was going to end it even if you cried and screamed. Well, good luck being a single woman. Ken hung up the phone after saying those hateful words. When I ended the call, I received a notification. It was from my sister and it said, "I'm sorry I took your fiancé." When my parents found out, they disowned Miley and told her to never come back home. But Miley was still proud. My husband is a doctor. I won. I don't care that I'm cut off from the family. See you later, sis. Thanks for introducing me to Ken. Keep being ugly and poor and alone. I realized that they are perfect for each other. And again, I'm so glad I didn't marry Ken. Even after we broke up, I had no intention of quitting my job. But I couldn't stand to work at the same place as him, so I transferred to an affiliated hospital. I put even more effort into my work, trying to be polite and energetic and always smiling. Even receptionists can help patients in different ways than doctors. It's not a job that just anyone could do. I worked hard, almost in spite of Miley and Ken. 2 years after Ken and I split up, someone talked to me like he did. You're always so energetic. Thank you. Although I said thank you, I was creeped out. He doesn't seem like he works at the hospital. He could be a patient or a family member. I didn't want to be a jerk, so I put a smile on my face, waiting for him to leave. But he didn't move. I said, how can I help you? He smiled big. I've always thought you have such a wonderful attitude toward your work. I'd like to talk to you more. Would you like to go to dinner with me? No, thanks. I turned to smile at him. He backed off that day, but this man was very stubborn. Tyler Morris showed up almost every week after that, inviting me out for dinner. Eventually, I gave in and went out with him. At that point, my bad impression of him had already faded. More importantly, he understood how important my work is to me. After a few dates, he asked me to be in a relationship with him. I told him what had happened in the past. I told him, I'm not holding back, but I'm still scared. I don't want to go through that again. I guess I said the wrong thing. He let out a bitter laugh and looked at me. I'm so attracted to you. I wouldn't make you sad or make you uneasy. Can you think about a future with me? I would make you happy. Tyler's gaze was enough to calm my worries. I made up my mind and decided to get in a relationship with him. He really cared about me. Even when we decided to get married after a year of dating, he respected my wish to continue working. My parents were overjoyed that I was so happy. They also liked Tyler, and we were able to build a good relationship with each other's families. I was living a happy, fulfilling life at work and at home. But then something happened. My husband and I went on a trip to Hawaii at the end of the year, the only time we could go on vacation and relax together. While having dinner at the resort restaurant, we ran into my sister and Ken. I couldn't believe my eyes for a minute. It had been about 3 years since I'd seen them. Even though it had been so long, Miley and Ken's condescending eyes had not changed. They caught me in their line of sight and came up to me, grinning. Ugh, there are poor people here. Hey, Ken, let's complain to the waiter and ask him to kick them out. Okay, yeah. If we're around these people, we'll look low class. They were talking loudly on purpose so that we could hear them. They were glancing at us and seemed to be enjoying our reactions. There were so many things I wanted to say, but this is a restaurant. There were people eating around us. I kept my feelings in check and continued eating in silence. Tyler, like me, completely ignored them, as if he had not noticed their presence, and smiled at me, saying, This appetizer is delicious. Don't ignore me, you ugly bitch. This is not a place for someone like you. Get the hell out of here. You're not my sister. What? You forgot about me, your cute little sister? I know you're still upset that I took your fiancé. You're so jealous of me. I heard you're still working. Working even after you're married? Poor you. The two of them started making fun of not only me, but also my husband. I could put up with it if it was just about me, but I couldn't stand listening to them making fun of my husband. I had had enough, and I sprang out of my chair. All right, I was keeping my mouth shut, but just as I was about to snap, Tyler quickly stepped forward as if to protect me. Then he looked at me and said in a calm voice, Katie, don't let these people make you angry. But they even made fun of Tyler, and I couldn't stand listening to them any longer. He could tell how I was feeling, and he looked at me and nodded. Ken and Miley, who were watching us, gave Tyler a condescending look and snickered. They looked at us and scoffed. You poor people are all dressed up. You may think you're dressed up, but you're not dressed nicely at all. You guys are matching. Miley pointed her finger at Tyler and laughed at him. I can't help but feel bad that I put my husband through this. But Tyler, on the other hand, didn't seem to mind at all, and he turned to the two of them in a matter-of-fact manner. You two are matching too. Your characters match. You both have nothing better to do than to look down on others. Hearing my husband's words, they looked like they had lost it. What? Are you making fun of us? Don't talk to us, you poor bastard. Don't you know who I am? I'm a doctor. I help ordinary people like you. You have no right to make fun of me. Unlike you, a poor man with a plain wife, I can choose as many women as I want. Saying this, Ken hugged Miley with an arrogant and boastful look on his face. Miley and Ken did look good next to each other, but just as before, my husband replied to both of them in the same matter-of-fact manner. I know what you're talking about, he said. Ken, you interned at the medical school of the University of A and have been working at your current hospital ever since, right? That's right. Ken is a doctor at a big hospital. If you know his background, even an idiot knows the difference between him and a poor person like you. Ken seemed somewhat surprised to learn that Tyler knew about his background, but Miley became very proud and began to talk. But she suddenly stopped talking when she heard Tyler's next words. Yes, I know very well. We manage the hospital, you know. We have to know who works there. What? Management? Miley had nothing to say. Ken also seemed to be in a daze, but not fully grasping the situation. Tyler took out his business card and began to introduce himself. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Tyler Morris, and I'm the president of the group company that manages the general hospital where you work. What? Ken finally opened his mouth. Miley was just staring at his business card. Yes, Tyler is the president of a group company that manages a number of hospitals. He told me that he first saw me when he came to the hospital for an inspection. During the inspection, he happened to hear that I had broken off my engagement with Ken and had been transferred to a different hospital. Tyler was surprised to see me working with a smile on my face. When he asked me to go out with him, he said he was attracted to me because of my dedication to my work, no matter what my personal life was like. Because he liked that about me, he respected my opinion that I didn't want to quit my job even after marriage. The job of a president is, in a word, hard work, but Tyler took care of himself. So what Ken said earlier, that he feels sorry for me that I have to work, is just ridiculous. People who only see things their way wouldn't understand. But I'm very grateful to Tyler for supporting me in doing what I want to do. And I can proudly say that I am happy to be married to Tyler. Ken said, I can't believe he's the president. He looked anxious. Miley looked up from her phone and shouted loudly, Hey, wait a minute! It is Tyler Morris! He started his own business early on, and at only 30 years old is the president of a major group company. He's been featured in all kinds of magazines. You're screwed. Ken looked at Miley's phone screen, and his face turned pale. Miley looked down, and Ken got on his knees and began to apologize. I'm so sorry. I didn't expect Katie to marry someone like you, and I was rude. Don't you see that what you just said alone is very disrespectful? It seems like disrespect for others runs deep in your bones. I find it hard to believe that someone who acts like you is a good doctor. Ken became even more flustered and continued to apologize. But Tyler wasn't having it. He said, If we keep causing a scene, it will disturb the people around us. Katie, we can order room service. He called out to a nearby waitress and gave her the room number. Then Miley screeched, That room is one of the nicest ones here! You're kidding, right? Let me go with you! How could she say that? Like there was any way I was going to allow that to happen. I said, "If we're around people like you, we'll look low class." My husband and I walked away. After getting back to Japan, Ken was given a pay cut when Tyler reported the incident. He said, "Doctors are in high demand. I don't care. I'll quit." Ken was unable to find a job because of bad rumors spreading in the industry. The hospital that finally hired him had a bad reputation. The working environment was terrible, and the wages were low. Ken and Miley constantly fought because they could no longer afford the luxuries they used to. Maybe this is why Ken had an affair with a nurse at the hospital. "I'll make sure I get what's mine." However, there was no way my sister, who didn't want to lose her husband's status as a doctor, would easily agree to the divorce. They ended up going through a divorce settlement and both spent tons of money. After a year of mediation, the divorce was finalized, but my sister never dropped her extravagant habits and blew all the money from the property division and alimony. She now lives in poverty in a shabby apartment. Ken married the nurse he had an affair with, but a medical error happened at his hospital and it closed. Both Ken and his new wife lost their jobs. Meanwhile, I just recently gave birth to my first child and went on maternity leave. Through the birth of my child, I realized how wonderful medical work is, and once again, I felt proud of my job. I intend to continue working with Tyler to balance work, housework, and childcare.
Welcome home! The bath is ready. I'm hungry, so the bath will be after. Prepare me dinner. Sure thing. This has been the same old conversation between me and my husband for decades. My name is Karen. I'm a 59-year-old homemaker. I time the preparation of the bath and dinner to coincide with my husband's return from work. Since it's not always clear which he'll want first, I have to have both ready. "Hey, bring some tea." When he says that, I simply respond, "Sure thing," and prepare the tea. I've been living this life for nearly 40 years, so for me, it's just as usual. I got a job right out of high school, met my future husband, who was my boss at the time, and we got married. Being the youngest of 4 siblings with 3 older brothers and with my parents getting on in years, I wanted to get married early to give them some peace of mind. Plus, I was working in an office, but frankly, it wasn't a good fit. As someone with no higher education, I was worried if I could get another job. So, getting married and retiring seemed like the best option for me. When my marriage was settled, my parents were overjoyed and shed tears of happiness. Not long after my daughter was born, they moved into a nursing home, leaving me the family home. I thought my prideful husband would oppose moving into my childhood home, but he figured it was better than renting, so we renovated it and moved in. He hardly did any housework or childcare, but the fact that we raised our daughter comfortably until adulthood is thanks to him. So I thought it was only natural to devote myself to my husband, until I saw that thing. With our daughter married and moved out, it's just the 2 of us in this house now. Our daughter, who lives nearby, checks in on us often, probably out of concern. She says she plans to continue working until she has kids. In our time, it was common for women to quit their jobs when they got married, but it seems times have changed. When I told her how impressive it is that she's doing all the housework for her husband and still working as she always has, she looked puzzled. "What are you talking about? We split the housework." Her husband, having lived alone before, can clean, do laundry, and cook. I knew he was capable when it came to work, but didn't expect him to be skilled at housework too. "It's quite different from Dad." She laughed as she said that. It seems that her husband, as well as her father-in-law, are good at doing housework. Indeed, a far cry from our household. It was a shock to me, who had always thought it was natural for my husband to not do housework. "By the way, Mom, I have a favor to ask." Turns out, she knows someone who runs a housekeeping service and is looking for more staff to expand the business. "Mom, why don't you give it a shot?" When she asked that, I was taken aback. I hardly have any work experience. I've never worked a day since I got married. Considering my age, I didn't think about working now, but when I heard that many people like me were working, I became a bit interested. Alright, I'll go and listen to the details next time. My daughter said that before she left. That night, when my husband came home, I told him about my daughter's visit and the home help service job. He looked at me incredulously and said, "You can't possibly go to work." After a pause, he added, "Karen, I have a business trip the day after tomorrow, so prepare my stuff." Another business trip? You've been having quite a few recently. Can't be helped, it's part of the job. In the past few years, my husband's business trips have become more frequent. He used to never go on them, but now it seems like he's gone at least once a month. And of course, I'm the one who prepares for his trips. I was also preparing for this trip, but due to the bad weather lately, the laundry didn't dry properly. I had forgotten to add one of his spare dress shirts. This had never happened before, and I thought it might be because I was getting old. But I couldn't embarrass my husband, and I thought I might still have time. So, I called my husband, who had already left home. I called his cell phone several times and even sent an email, but there was no response. Then, I realized that he had left his cell phone at home in the bedroom. My husband, who is not very interested in cell phones, occasionally forgets it when he goes to work. He doesn't seem to have much trouble because he doesn't go out much at work, but I suppose it's a different story when he's on a business trip. In a panic, I called his office. The person who answered was one of his subordinates. When I told him that my husband had forgotten something for his business trip and I needed to contact him, he said, "Business trip? Please wait a moment," which made me wonder. Even though he's a direct subordinate, he doesn't know about his boss's business trip? As I was thinking this, I was told, "I'm sorry, he seems to have gone straight to his business trip destination without stopping by the office." I asked about my husband's business trip destination and his companion, but they said they couldn't disclose that information. I was told something about the company's confidentiality obligation, and I agreed to have them tell my husband about the forgotten item instead. After a while, I heard a car stopping outside, and the doorbell rang. It seemed that my husband had come back home because he had received a call from the office. I apologized to my husband and handed him his dress shirt and cell phone. When I saw my husband off outside, I saw a woman sitting in the driver's seat. I nodded slightly to her, but she ignored me. I watched my husband get into the car with a somewhat unpleasant feeling. My husband returned home 2 days later in the evening. As soon as he came back, he said, "Bath." But I hadn't started heating it yet. There was no notice of his return, so I had no idea when he would be back. Besides, it was earlier than his usual return time. Then my husband became grumpy and said, "Then let's eat first." So I quickly made dinner and served it. As I set the meal before my husband, I asked him, "How was your trip?" However, he barely responded. "You wouldn't understand even if I told you. You've never worked." Words that belittled me seemed to come naturally from his lips. I let out a sigh. Claiming fatigue, my husband finished his meal and went straight to the bath and then the bedroom. Remembering my daughter's conversation, I called her and said, "I want to hear more about the housekeeping service job." For the 40 years since I got married, all I did was household chores and child rearing, so even if I thought about working, I believed I wouldn't be able to do anything. But with a housekeeping job, I might be able to put the 40 years that seemed wasted to good use. With my daughter out of the house and my time alone at home increasing, I also wanted to have a bit more interaction with people, so I decided to give the housekeeping job a shot. My husband was against it, but I obtained his approval by ensuring that I wouldn't be out of the house when he's home, and that I would continue to keep the house clean as usual. Once I started working, it felt refreshing to be able to earn money and receive appreciation for doing housework. My daughter used to thank me occasionally, but ever since it became just the two of us, my husband has never said a word of thanks. When he comes home, all he asks for is bath or dinner. And when he's relaxing, just tea. For the first time, I started to resent him. In the past, we used to have more conversations, but at some point, I realized deep down that I was being treated like a housemaid. Once I got used to the job, I was assigned a new client. A woman living alone, she seemed to be slightly younger than me. When I visited the woman's apartment, I felt I had seen her somewhere, but I couldn't remember. The woman left the house after giving me instructions, saying she had work to do. Her room was in chaos due to her busy schedule, so I started by tidying up. As I was cleaning, a photo caught my eye. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The woman who had hired me was in the photo with my husband. That's when I realized that this woman was the driver when my husband had stopped by the house because he forgot something on his business trip. I couldn't take this photo home, so for now I decided to keep it to myself. With mixed feelings, I finished my job for the day. That night, as soon as my husband came home, he said, "I have a trip tomorrow, so hurry up and prepare for it." "Another trip?" I asked, to which my husband, who seemed grumpy, said, "I can't help it, it's my job. Unlike you, who just get paid for housework, I have a tough job." Is he so determined to look down on me? My resentment towards my husband grew. On the day my husband left for his trip, I steeled myself and entered his room. I had never imagined the day would come when I would suspect my husband of infidelity. And I guess my husband thought the same, because I found evidence of his infidelity quite easily. He had the same photo that I had seen in that woman's house. Inside his drawer, there were numerous photos, and I discovered letters from his mistress. Letters that read things like, "My wife is just a housekeeper. I'm so happy when you tell me you love me." Her name was on them. It confirmed his infidelity. I hastily consulted my daughter. Luckily, it was her day off, and she said she would come immediately. When I told her everything, my daughter was even angrier than me. "What do you want to do, Mom?" she asked. For the first time, I realized I had a choice. So I told my daughter that I wanted to get a divorce. Even though all I know is housekeeping, the fact that my husband called me a mere housekeeper ignited my anger more than it brought me sadness. I was betrayed by the husband I had devoted myself to. With that in mind, I wanted to be away from him as quickly as possible. My daughter offered that if I felt that way, I could move out and live with her. But I felt guilty about involving her husband, and above all, I own this house. I didn't want to leave my husband in this house. But I thought moving out might speed up the divorce, so I started to prepare to move and rent an apartment. My daughter found a lawyer, and I seriously started to take steps toward the divorce. A week later, I consulted with the lawyer, gathered the evidence, and wrote the divorce papers. I brought it up to my husband when he came home. "I want a divorce," I said. He scoffed. "Out of the blue? What will you do after the divorce? You've barely worked a day in your life. You think you can survive on your own?" His words hurt, and holding back tears, I replied, "Even so, it's better than living with someone who's cheating on me." He laughed. "Cheating? What are you talking about? That's not cheating. She's my lover. In other words, she's the main one and you're just the housekeeper. You didn't notice for over 10 years and now you suddenly care? If you hadn't noticed, you could have lived here without a care in the world as a housekeeper. What a pity." He didn't even deny the affair. Was he really this terrible of a person? When I presented him with the divorce papers, he snatched them, filled them out without hesitation, and shoved them back at me. "I'm ready for a divorce anytime. I'll give you until tomorrow. If you're getting a divorce, leave this house," he said, and went to the bathroom. The next morning, for the first time in decades, I broke my routine. I didn't prepare breakfast or lunch for my husband, nor did I wake him up. I left the house early in the morning. He usually wakes up at 7. I left before that and went to a local diner. How refreshing it was, taking breakfast in a sparsely populated diner. The scene before me was so extraordinary, it felt somewhat beautiful. After a while, my cell phone started ringing several times. It was from my husband. Not the type to text, he usually prefers to call. Chances are, if I answer, he'll just end up berating me. Ignoring him, I turned off my phone. After relaxing at the diner, I went to the local office. As soon as the office opened, I filed the divorce papers. While my husband was at work, I decided to go home and pack up my stuff. But surprisingly, my husband was still at home. "Where the hell have you been? It's your fault I'm late. I can't go to work now, so I've said I gotta go to the hospital and take the day off." Well, it's not surprising a man who's never woken up by himself can't do it now. But taking the day off work, just like that, what an idea. I didn't feel like arguing with him, so I just ignored him and started packing. "Ah, so you've decided to leave. From now on, I'll invite her over." Her must be his mistress. Is he planning to kick me out and live here with her? The moment I heard that, I reached my breaking point. "So, you've been making a fool of me all this time. I've already consulted a lawyer. Be prepared, because I will definitely claim compensation for the affair." At this, my husband just laughed. "A lawyer? I can hire a competent one anytime. You don't stand a chance." I was so frustrated being ridiculed like this, I was about to respond. Suddenly, my husband clutched his stomach and crouched down in pain. I wondered what was wrong, but it seemed like he was really in pain. For a moment, I thought of leaving him like that, but if I do, there might be repercussions against me. Seeing him in such pain, I called an ambulance. The ambulance arrived quickly. I answered their questions and watched over my husband. It was decided that he would be transported to the hospital. One of the paramedics looked at me and said, "Ma'am, you should get ready too." But I responded firmly, "I can't. We're strangers now." The paramedic looked puzzled, but perhaps sensing something, they transported my husband without me accompanying him. At that moment, my husband's face was pathetically funny. When I contacted my daughter, she agreed to go to the hospital. It seems my husband will be hospitalized for a while. I only heard that his life was not in danger, but didn't ask for more details. After all, he's a stranger to me now. It'd be a problem if I develop unwanted feelings. I told my daughter, and she understood. While continuing to pack, I found another photo of my husband with his mistress. Shockingly, it was hidden in the living room drawer. In that drawer were our wedding rings, and I couldn't tell if my husband had intentionally left it there or not. But realizing I hadn't noticed it until now, I felt something was wrong with me. At the same time, anger bubbled up within me again. I thought about leaving this house, but I wasn't going to let it end with me just walking away. My husband wasn't around, and I saw this as an opportunity to act. I moved all his belongings to a rented storage unit. Half a month later, when I started living in a new apartment and finished my work for the day, I found my phone filled with missed calls from my husband. As I was about to drop my phone in surprise, another call came through. I reluctantly pressed the answer button. "Hey, where are you right now? Why can't I get into the house?" My husband's voice echoed. It seemed he had been discharged from the hospital and had returned home. I laughed. "Congratulations on your discharge. That's no longer your home, so why don't you go to your mistress's place?" "What do you mean?" he shouted, but I didn't back down. "I sold the house. You seem to be mistaken, but the house was in my name. I can do whatever I want with my belongings, and it's none of your business. Besides, I've graduated from being your housekeeper. We're already divorced, so do whatever you please." Divorce? He must have forgotten about signing the divorce papers half a month ago, or maybe he thought I wouldn't really go through with it. He seemed bewildered, but I hung up. Later, I claimed damages through a lawyer from both my ex-husband and his mistress. My ex-husband had boasted he could easily hire a competent lawyer, but given the evidence and duration of the affair, no lawyer was willing to take a losing case. Thus, I was able to secure a significant sum of money. From what my daughter heard from my ex-husband, His affair was apparently well known within his company, which made sense considering the reactions I got when I called his workplace. In reality, he wasn't on business trips, but vacationing with his mistress. But once the divorce was finalized, my ex-husband became the butt of jokes at his office for being left by his wife and having his house sold off. Apparently, he felt quite uncomfortable. His colleagues and subordinates were heartless. Furthermore, when he went to his mistress's place and she was also asked to pay damages, she complained that this wasn't what she signed up for and left him. How could she say such a thing after getting involved with a married man? My daughter, unable to forgive her father's infidelity, cut off all contact with him afterwards, so I don't know what happened to him. Given his high pride, he might not be able to stand being laughed at work and might have quit the job. He might have moved back to his hometown, which is far away from here. I thought I was powerless, but once housework became my job, I realized the time I'd spent wasn't wasted, and now I'm living a fulfilling life.
My name is Sarah, a 35-year-old stay-at-home mom. I married my high school sweetheart, Tom, and we moved for his job, now living in the next town over. I'm currently pregnant, just about ready to hit my 9th month, but circumstances have brought me back to my childhood home. The reason? My younger brother's wedding. He called to share the news that he was getting married. I knew he had been seeing someone for a while, but it seems they've decided to tie the knot. As his only sister, I'd love to be there for my little brother's wedding, but with my due date right around the corner, it's unpredictable what could happen. After discussing it with my family, we decided it would be best if I sat this one out. Since today is the eve of the wedding and my brother is returning home, I brought over some gifts as a way to celebrate, which is why I've returned home today. As I walked in, I found my brother lounging in the living room, sipping his coffee. Seeing me, his face lit up with a big smile. "Wow, Sarah, it's been a while. Your belly's gotten so big." Looking at my pregnant belly, he seemed quite surprised. I know, right? I've gotten quite big. It's even a task to get out of bed now. My brother has always loved kids and works as a kindergarten teacher. He's very excited about my baby coming. "Wow, this is really amazing. Hey, can I touch your belly?" He asked for permission to touch my pregnant belly, to which I replied, "Sure, go ahead." I didn't mind him touching my belly, so I let him go ahead. However, little did I know at the time that this would trigger an unthinkable incident. As my brother gingerly laid his hand on my belly, the baby inside gave his hand a gentle kick from within. "Wow, this is so moving. I can't wait to have a kid of my own someday. You have so much to look forward to." I replied just as we were having this friendly conversation. "What on earth are you doing?" Suddenly a young woman stormed into the living room, staring at me with a fierce expression. As I was trying to figure out how to explain, an immense force struck my cheek. I didn't realize I had been hit until a moment later. Unprepared for such an attack, I stumbled backwards and landed hard on my butt. If that wasn't enough, the next moment a loud pop was followed by water leaking from below. I realized that my water had broken due to the fall and my belly began to hurt from the shock. "Ouch, it hurts, please help." Between being struck and my water breaking, I was in so much shock that I passed out then and there. When I woke up, I found myself lying in bed staring blankly at the ceiling. Where am I? Oh no, the baby. Is the baby okay? In an instant, I felt a wave of fear washing over me. My belly, which had been swollen until recently, now appeared smaller with an IV tube attached to my arm. "Oh, are you awake?" A sudden voice startled me. In the room were an elderly couple I didn't know and the woman who had pushed me earlier. The woman was looking over with a sullen face. "Who are you?" I managed to ask. The situation was already causing me to panic, and seeing strangers in the room made it even more confusing. "Sorry for the confusion. We're the parents of Luna, your brother's bride-to-be." The parents of my brother's bride-to-be were grinning at me. "That's not important right now. I need a doctor." As I reached to press the nurse call button, my hand was suddenly held back. "What are you doing? Let go of me." This time, the bride's mother interfered. "It's okay. We'll call for you. But before that, there's something we need to discuss." I couldn't understand why they wanted to talk before calling a doctor. I needed to know what was going on as soon as possible. "I don't have time to talk with you. My baby is missing." "Oh, that? The baby's in the incubator. You have nothing to worry about. Everything is under the doctor's control." Then they suggested a settlement. Their daughter was young. They said that I should forgive her this time because of her youth. Are you kidding me? I can't do that. The absurdity of it all led me to shout out. "What are you talking about? You don't need to be so tough. You're just poor after all, aren't you? You want money from the settlement, right? Don't hold back." The three of them seemed to assume that I was poor and that I would certainly agree to a settlement if they offered enough money. But I couldn't accept that. They had disregarded my life and thought they could resolve it with money. I won't. I'm ready to fight. Earlier, you referred to my baby as that. I will never settle with someone who doesn't even apologize. Seeing my firm stance, they began to show their impatience. They increased the amount they offered, 1 million, 2 million, but no matter what they said, I wouldn't agree. Enough is enough. Because of you, my wedding was canceled, you know. If anything, I'm the victim here. If you don't agree to the settlement, I'll demand payment for the cancellation of the wedding. Just when I was at my wit's end, not understanding their pressure, and tears started welling up, a voice rang out. We've heard the whole story. With those words, my husband Tom and my brother suddenly walked into the hospital room. Both of them glared at the trio with a menacing look. Hey, where have you been? I've been calling you since earlier. I received a text that our wedding is canceled tomorrow, but there's no explanation. Explain it properly to me, Luna said as she tried to run towards my brother. Don't come any closer. You're not my bride. Huh? She was taken aback by the sudden comment and stopped in her tracks. What do you mean by not my bride? Aren't we supposed to be a couple since we're getting married? Are you joking about me not being your bride? Was she not understanding the situation, or did she think my brother was just messing around? Her face didn't seem to register the gravity of the situation yet. Do you think this is a joke? You let your emotions get the best of you, hit Sarah without hearing her out, and she ended up going into labor due to that. All you did was look down on her while she was in pain. Didn't even try to help, did you? That's right, she stood there with a faint smile looking down at me in pain, offering no help whatsoever until I passed out. I was just so shocked that I couldn't move. It's not like I didn't want to help. She insisted that she had intended to help but was too shocked to move. Really? But you seemed to be quite relaxed looking at your smartphone and grinning. If you were really too shocked to move, you wouldn't be leisurely checking your phone, would you? She must not have thought that we saw that. I didn't miss the momentary twitch in her face. Well, I didn't mean any harm, but more importantly, our wedding was ruined, right? Don't you care about that? Don't you feel bad about the inconvenience caused to the people who came from afar? All because of that. Just like her mother, she referred to what happened to me and my baby as that. That word was more unforgivable than anything else. It wasn't just me who felt that way. Tom did too. I'm sorry, but on the way here, we filed a complaint. We can't let this go. Their smug faces from earlier dropped, gaping in surprise at Tom's words. Wait a minute, what do you mean you filed a complaint? She collapsed and went into labor on her own, right? If anything, our wedding got ruined. Shouldn't we be the ones demanding compensation? Hearing words like compensation and complaint, Luna became flustered, desperately wanting to marry my brother. Brian, don't you think that's a bit harsh? Our daughter didn't mean any harm. Please forgive her. Yeah, and isn't that woman also to blame? My daughter thought she was your mistress and got jealous. I think you bear some responsibility too. It seems Luna thought I was my brother's mistress, but he had shown her my photo in advance, so could there have been a misunderstanding? Even if there was, it's absolutely not acceptable to hit a pregnant woman. No matter what the reason is, hitting a pregnant woman is unforgivable. You haven't even apologized to Sarah once, have you? Why would I want to marry someone like that? Don't joke around. My brother raised his voice and Luna, looking pale, came over to me. I understand. I apologize. I'm very sorry for what happened. See, I apologize now, so please reconsider. It seemed like she was only apologizing reluctantly because she didn't want the marriage to be called off. No, it's too late for that. After hearing what you said, I can't even consider marrying you. I'll demand payment for the cancellation of the wedding and compensation. Stay out of my life. No matter what she said, my brother's mind was made up, and neither Tom nor I intended to withdraw the complaint. Despite other patients being around, all they cared about was not wanting to get divorced. They were desperate to have their wedding, worried about face saving for their relatives and colleagues. It didn't seem like they felt any remorse for the terrible thing they'd done to us. And so, my brother and Luna broke up. I felt sorry for him, but don't worry about it, Sarah. Actually, I'm relieved. I didn't marry such a heartless woman. If it's meant to be, I'll meet someone wonderful. His positive words reassured me a bit. Later, the doctor came to see us. The baby was fine, and I was told that we could go home together once my condition improved. Although I fell on my butt, my lower body was in pain, but other than that, there was no abnormality in my bones. The only pain was from the scar left by the emergency cesarean section. When I went to see my baby, they were crying energetically in their small bed. The moment I heard their voice, tears of relief streamed down my face. Thus, after several days in the hospital with my child, my health returned. And since neither my child nor I had abnormalities in our health, we finally reached the day of discharge. On the day of discharge, it seems that my husband, Tom, and my brother were coming to the hospital by car. I was waiting at the hospital entrance holding my child. It's all right, sweetie. Daddy will be here soon. You must be excited to go home. While I was soothing my child, that's when it happened. Ah! Suddenly, Luna raised her voice and swung a metal bat towards me and my child. What the hell? I managed to dodge her in a split second, but she was aiming to swing again. This was dangerous. I thought I had to run away, but my legs were trembling and I couldn't move from the spot. Then a security guard who happened to be nearby came over and protected us. Soon my husband and the others arrived and restrained her. Let go of me! What are you doing? She screamed and thrashed about being held down, causing a scene in front of everyone. I could feel the blood draining from my face at the sight. The child I was holding in my arm must have sensed something as well because they started crying as if they were on fire. Are you okay, Sarah? Tom came over to me and stroked my back, seeing my face pale. What's going on? Why is she here, for starters? I didn't notify anyone about my discharge today. That's right, only a handful of people knew that I was being discharged today. So why does she know that I was being discharged today? Hey, no one told you about the discharge. How the hell did you know? He questioned Luna, who was being restrained. Then we heard unbelievable words from her mouth. Of course, I've been staking out here every day. Apparently, she had been coming to the hospital every day to meet me, waiting for me to leave. You've been here every day? What about your job? You didn't ditch just to be here, did you? If she had skipped work to be here, that would be a problem. Don't be ridiculous. Even I wouldn't do such a thing. I told my boss that I've been harassed by the groom's sister and my marriage has been ruined. I'm so shocked that I can't recover, so I'm taking a break. So it's not like I'm playing hooky being here today. She explained confidently, but I think it does qualify as playing hooky. And by the groom's sister, she means me. How was I supposed to harass my brother's bride? I didn't even have time to harass her when I first met her that day. I felt frustrated not knowing what she was talking about. Stop lying for once. My sister didn't harass you. That was our first encounter. You need to understand the gravity of what you've done. It seems that she still didn't understand the severity of her actions. When my brother asked why she did this, she apparently still had feelings for him and wanted him to reconsider by threatening me and mediating their relationship. But if she does something like this, it would only further distance my brother. On top of that, he wouldn't want to have anything to do with her for the rest of his life. Doesn't she realize that she's doing the complete opposite? Hey, let's start over again. If we talk, we can understand each other. We don't need to cancel our marriage for such a person. You said you love children, right? I'm young, so I can give birth to as many as you want. Let's build a happy family together. Feeling a chill down my spine, I looked at her face, beaming with a smile. Huh? What are you talking about? Are you okay? There is no way I could live with someone whose screws have come loose. The place you're going to is a jail cell. Immediately after, we could hear the sounds of sirens and several police cars parked nearby. The police officers came over to us immediately, and Luna was taken away. She was shouting at us, "Let go! I was deceived by them! The bad one is that woman! Arrest that woman!" Until she got into the police car, but many people witnessed her swinging the bat at me. After all, this is the entrance of a general hospital, with many patients, their families, and hospital staff coming and going. Our witnesses explained to the police that Luna had swung the bat at me, so her claims were disregarded, and she was taken straight to the police station. As a precaution, I had myself and my child examined. Thankfully, due to my quick reflexes, neither of us were injured. I was relieved to have been able to protect my child. Subsequently, Luna was arrested on charges of attempted assault against us. Someone who had witnessed the scene that day ended up uploading the incident on social media. Although the video was immediately removed by the platform's administration, it had been viewed and shared by a significant number of people, making it impossible to completely erase. As a result of the incident and its spread, Luna lost her job and her parents were forced into a situation where they had to move. Then, Luna's parents came to my family home. "Please help us. We live on pensions and have no money. We can't afford to pay compensation," they pleaded. "Let's settle this peacefully," they suggested. Once Luna was behind bars, it became the responsibility of her parents to pay the damages. They had come to us for a settlement, stating they had no money since they were living on pensions. "No matter what you say, I can't forgive you. If you contact us any further, I will consult the police," I responded. Previously, the two of them would have apologized with a smug smile on their faces, but today, they were genuinely in trouble. They repeatedly apologized. Even so, I could not forgive them. When it became clear they wouldn't leave despite being told numerous times, my husband threatened to call the police and they hastily left. After a discussion with my parents, my husband, and Brian, we decided to move out of this house as we couldn't guarantee they wouldn't return. In case of unforeseen circumstances, we moved in a high-security apartment. Everyone changed their phone numbers so we should no longer be reachable. Later, the compensation was safely paid and we were relieved. However, the three of them faced ruin. Luna was still behind bars, and even if she were to be released, it would be difficult for her to reintegrate into society given her name, face, and video had spread worldwide. Her parents were living on pension, but they couldn't afford to repay their debts and had to resort to working 6 days a week at part-time jobs. As for Luna, she seemed to be making money from working nights, but the patrons who knew about her past turned her into a joke. So she's been hopping from one place to another. They were out of money and barely scraping by, with daily fights over finances becoming a constant occurrence.
Celebrating my 3rd wedding anniversary, but this year David is not by my side. Why? Because he's been on a solo work assignment for the past 6 months. If he can't come home because of work, then I'll surprise him by going to see him. I'll dress up real special. But what I saw at David's place of assignment was him entering an apartment with a woman I've never seen before. I can't believe this. How could he cheat on me like this? Is this who he really is? Well, 2 can play that game. and so began my quest for revenge on David. My name is Karen Smith. I'm 29 years old. I work a regular job while maintaining a married life, a working housewife. David and I have been married for 2 years now. Adding in the time we dated, we have a relationship that spans about 5 years. We met through mutual friends during my first year in the workforce. One of my college buddies worked at the same company as David, and we happened to run into each other at a pub. I was alone. They were having a drink with colleagues. A friend noticed me and invited me to join, and that's how it all began. From there, David and I started exchanging contact information and texting. At the time, my head was full of work. I couldn't imagine dating anyone. Apparently, David felt the same way. Whenever we had free time, we'd meet at a pub and vent to each other. Listen, David, my boss got mad at me today for the dumbest reason.
Oh man, I totally get it. They act like they told you something when they never did.
Exactly. If you're telling me to do something I don't know about, at least explain it to me.
Yeah, you're telling me. Well, let's just drink for now.
Sounds good. Tomorrow's a day off. Let's hop to a few places tonight. Our relationship was like a friendship or sibling bond. David became increasingly important to me. After about 2 years of knowing him,
I think I've fallen for you, Karen.
We were at our usual pub, trying to sober up on a park bench, when David suddenly said this. Caught off guard, my voice wavered. What? Even though it was winter, I felt hot. Apparently, David felt the same way. His face, illuminated by the moonlight, had a faint blush, and I knew it wasn't because of the alcohol. Seeing my confusion, David continued.
Karen, will you be my girlfriend?
Are you sure about me?
Yes, it's you that I want, Karen. We're like best friends who can talk about anything and care for each other. I think you're the only one I can have that kind of relationship with.
David. And so, a romantic relationship began. It felt more like a friendship than a romance, but it was happiness nonetheless. Fast forward 6 months, and we were approaching our 3rd wedding anniversary. For the last 2 anniversaries, we reserved a restaurant, had a delightful dinner, and came home to eat cake. We could either continue the same tradition this year or try something new. Even though the date was half a year away, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Then one day, I had just gotten home and was preparing dinner while waiting for David. About an hour later, David came back. I was frying chicken, so I couldn't leave the kitchen, but I yelled, "Welcome home!" But there was no reply from David. I had definitely heard the front door, and usually he would say, "I'm home." Puzzled, I turned off the stove and went to the entrance. David was standing there, looking downcast. Confused, I spoke to David. "David, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well?"
No, it's not that.
"Then what's going on? You look really down."
Something came up at work today.
Did something go wrong with his job? With that thought, I casually asked, "What did they say?" David, still looking glum, finally spoke.
I have to go on a solo assignment to New Orleans starting next month.
What?
The guy who was supposed to go had to quit because of family reasons, so they want me to go instead.
You're kidding. Why so suddenly? And New Orleans is so far away.
I'm really sorry, but there's a promotion involved, and I couldn't say no.
Are you serious? According to David, it was difficult to turn down the assignment given the circumstances. It was only for 6 months, and considering his future, the promotion was important. But was it normal for a husband to decide on such a thing without consulting his wife? Despite several attempts to discuss it with David, the result remained the same. I also had my job, so I couldn't go with David to New Orleans. I reluctantly agreed to live separately for 6 months.
Let's celebrate our wedding anniversary when I come back.
With that promise, David's life on assignment began. 2 months later. At first, it was lonely without him, but I gradually got used to life alone. Our daily routine became evening phone calls to share updates about our day. That evening, as usual, I dialed his number at 9 p.m., but for some reason, David didn't answer. He usually picks up within a few rings. A wave of anxiety hit me. I texted him but got no reply. Getting worried, I kept calling him over and over. Finally, on the 6th or so try, David answered.
Karen, what's up?
What do you mean, what's up? I was worried.
Sorry. I was working late.
Working late? I thought your company doesn't do overtime.
Huh? Oh, well, I've gotten used to things, so I'm choosing to stay late. Don't want my performance to slip.
I see. Must be tough.
So I hate to say it, but I may not be able to call as often. I want to hit the hay as soon as I get home.
How could he say that out of the blue? Or is it that I'm the only one feeling lonely? Knowing David was busy, I opened up about how I felt. I get that you're busy, David, but I want to talk. Even if it's just for a few minutes a day.
That's easier said than done.
Please, I'll manage when you really can't.
Fine. I'm tired now, so I'm hanging up. Bye.
What? Wait, David. He cut the call before I could finish. The sound of the call ending left me with an empty feeling. What's gotten into David? We promised to talk daily before his assignment started. And his recent behavior was distant. Is talking to me that much of a burden? I started to feel it was my fault for his lackluster response. It was already hard not being able to see him, and now we couldn't even talk? The loneliness was piling up. Time flew, and it had been 5 months since David left for New Orleans. Our wedding anniversary was fast approaching, but the state of our relationship was far from marital. We barely texted, let alone talked on the phone. Even if I responded quickly, David would take days to reply. I just want to hear your voice over the phone, even if it's brief. Despite my plea, he stubbornly insisted he was too busy. The mood wasn't right for discussing our anniversary, and our conversations became increasingly superficial. Our anniversary was just 3 days away. I subtly texted David, "Can you come home this weekend?" If he remembered our anniversary, he would surely come home. Even though we could celebrate once his work assignment was done, I just couldn't help but want to see him now. Then a call from David came through. It had been a while since he initiated contact, so I answered, filled with anticipation. "Hey, David. About the text I sent."
Sorry, can't do it.
"What?"
"I've told you, I'm swamped with work. Can't make it home."
"You're kidding."
"That's the way it is."
And just like that, David hung up. Such a brief conversation after so long. Only a few seconds? David sounded rushed over the phone, giving me the impression he was swamped with work. I felt down that David couldn't come home, but then it struck me. That's it. Why don't I go to him? Make it a surprise. If David's too busy to come home, I should go to him. How did I not think of this simple solution before? Decision made. I was all set to surprise David over the weekend. Fast forward to our anniversary day. I was on a flight to New Orleans where David was on assignment. It was Saturday, and David was likely working. I knew his apartment address, so I decided to wait at a nearby cafe until he came home. This was a surprise, so I didn't inform David. I kept an eye on his apartment from the cafe window. What should I say when I see him? He'll surely be surprised. Lost in thought and excitement, I looked outside and saw someone who looked like David. As I was about to pay and leave, an unbelievable scene caught my eye. What? You're kidding me. A young woman quickly ran up to David, who was waiting outside his apartment. He greeted her with a warm smile and caressed her head. Arm in arm, they both went into his apartment, looking happy. The David I knew was gone. My intense desire to see David shattered in an instant. I can't believe it. He lied about being busy and was cheating on me. How much more does he plan to humiliate me? I can never forgive him. I'll make them both regret this. Any remaining love for David evaporated, replaced by a thirst for revenge. I immediately caught a flight back and headed straight to a reputable law firm. Next, I commissioned a personal investigation on David from a private investigation agency. In about a week, I gathered plenty of evidence proving David's infidelity. Maybe he'd let his guard down because he was away on a work assignment. With the evidence in hand, I went to see a lawyer. While preparing for the divorce, I also began packing my things to move out. I managed to finish moving 2 days before David returned home from his assignment. Since the apartment we lived in was originally in my name from my single days, I ended the lease when I moved. And finally, the day David was to return home arrived. After dinner, I was thinking it should be any moment now when, as expected, the phone rang. Taking a deep breath, I answered. David immediately started yelling.
Hey, Karen! What the hell is going on here?
What do you mean?
Don't play dumb. Why are so many things missing from the house? Even the appliances are almost all gone.
Well, that's because I moved them to my new place.
What? New place?
David seemed unable to grasp the situation, raising his voice.
What do you mean?
So I kindly explained. I moved out because I don't want to be your wife anymore.
What? What are you saying? I just got back from my work assignment.
That work assignment must have been fun. Cheating behind my back, huh? The moment I said cheating, David started to stammer. Thinking he could somehow talk his way out of it, he fired back.
What are you talking about? Cheating? I would never do such a thing.
But you did, right?
No, I didn't. Are you still holding a grudge because I couldn't keep in touch due to work? It couldn't be helped. I really was busy. I was working even on my days off.
Wow, you're good at lying. I saw it, you know.
Saw what?
I saw you going into an apartment with a young woman at your work assignment location.
What?
David probably hasn't fully comprehended my words.
No way. I would never cheat,
he muttered as if talking to himself. That's when I sent all the photographic evidence of his infidelity to his phone. So, can you still say you weren't cheating after seeing what I just sent?
What is this?
I hired a private investigation agency after I found out you were cheating. Can't believe I got this much evidence in just a week's personal investigation. You must have felt really secure during your assignment, huh?
No, this isn't what it looks like.
Confronted with the evidence, David was visibly shaken. Even while panicking, he insisted.
It's not cheating. She's just a junior colleague.
But of course, all his claims were nothing but lies. The private investigator's photos made it pretty clear. There were shots of them kissing in public and walking arm in arm like a couple. So there's no way out for David now. The more he tries to explain, the more credible the evidence becomes. It seems like David doesn't realize he's digging his own grave.
I was just helping out a junior colleague. She's like a sister to me. I only love Karen.
His ridiculous excuses make me more disappointed than angry. I had enough and said point blank, "Stop it, David. It's pretty obvious you're cheating."
No, you've got it all wrong. She's just a colleague.
So, you kiss and cuddle with just colleagues? Wow, that's creepy.
No, it's a misunderstanding. Let's meet up and talk it over, you'll see. I finally reached my breaking point. Shut up! What? Karen, what did you just say? I said, shut up, you awful man. At the sound of my shouting, David was at a loss for words. Furious, I yelled at him through the phone. You think your pathetic excuses will fly? Who'd believe a cheater like you? I'm done trusting you, David. Count me out. Wait, Karen. Let's at least talk. No more talking, got it? I'll make sure you and your affair partner pay every dime in the divorce settlement. And I'm telling both our families and your workplace, prepare for your life to be over. I hung up without waiting for David's reply. Deleted his contact information, cutting him off completely. After that, I divorced David. I took legal action, demanding a lump sum payment for damages in the divorce trial. Apparently, David emptied nearly his entire savings, and his affair partner went into debt to pay. This led to a big fight between them, and they broke up. Or rather, David got dumped. After the divorce was finalized, I reported everything to both families and their employer. Since the affair partner was a junior colleague from David's remote workplace, they both got fired. His finances drained, relationship ruined, and now jobless. David's chances of recovery seemed slim. He sought financial aid from his family, but they disowned him upon learning about his cheating. It's pitiful, really. But not like he deserves any sympathy. As for me, I've moved on, living a fulfilling life in a new home. My job is going as well as ever, and I spend my free weekends engrossed in my newfound hobby of crafting. Being alone doesn't feel lonely anymore. I plan to use my time joyfully, living life for myself.
Can you even handle being with a crying baby?
It was the night I came back home after giving birth at my parents' house, and my husband dropped this bomb on me. In my arms, our newborn daughter Amelia was crying. She's just been born, it's natural for her to cry.
I don't care.
Originally, I planned to stay at my parents' house until Amelia and I were both stable. However, my husband said,
Come home already.
So we came back. Now, because of his shouting, Amelia's crying escalated.
You two sleep in the kitchen.
She'll catch a cold. He insisted on this absurdity because the kitchen was the furthest room from the bedroom.
How about you take responsibility? If I get sick from sleep deprivation, I have work tomorrow, so just go to the kitchen.
Realizing that arguing was futile, I took Amelia and left the bedroom. As I left, I heard him say,
Who do you think is feeding you?
And couldn't help but shed tears from humiliation. My name is Sophia, and I'm 27 years old. I married Oliver after a year-long workplace romance. He's a sales ace, handling even the toughest deals with grit and calculated strategy. I still remember feeling reassured by his demeanor. In the early days of our marriage, Oliver was somewhat henpecked, but our life was mostly harmonious. That all changed when I became pregnant. He stopped doing household chores altogether. When I complained, he coldly retorted,
We're living on my income, so it's only natural.
This was something I couldn't have imagined coming from Oliver before. Well, that may be true, but Oliver told me to focus on raising the child after getting pregnant, and I had to quit my job. I had no income, but that didn't mean I was willing to do all the housework. Just as I was about to speak up, he cut me off.
Before you say anything, take a look at this.
With a smug smile, Oliver showed me a divorce paper with his name on it. I was stunned and impulsively grabbed the paper in front of me. What the heck is this?
It's as you see. No income, no housework. Then, divorce is the obvious next step.
Taking a moment to think, I replied in a shaky voice, I'll handle all the housework.
You should have said that from the start.
The thought of our unborn child made divorce absolutely out of the question. Oliver knew that, which is why he brain-dished the divorce papers at me. Frustrated, I bit my lip hard. From that day on, our lives changed dramatically. Any slight grievance and Oliver would wave the divorce papers in my face. I had no choice but to go along with whatever he said. His assertiveness and cunning at work turned out to be disastrous in our home life. Despite being treated like a maid, our baby was growing healthily, and the due date was just a month away. Can I go back to my parents' house a week before the due date? I couldn't imagine Oliver being any support during my childbirth. That's why I wanted to give birth at my mom's place.
Sure, go ahead, but I'll keep these.
He snatched my credit and ATM cards from my wallet.
I have to eat out since you're not doing the chores. You are covering the costs. No complaints, right?
In our account was the savings we agreed not to touch until the baby was born. I wanted to snatch back the cards right away, but I held back. If I refused now, Oliver wouldn't allow me to go back home. Weighing the loss of our savings against the fear of giving birth alone, I reluctantly nodded. Giving birth alone was just too frightening for me. A week later, I checked into a hospital near my parents' home. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. I named her Amelia because Oliver said I could choose the name. My mom was enamored by Amelia and cuddled her constantly, making me feel a little awkward yet warm inside. After getting discharged, I temporarily returned to my parents' home. I had planned to rest at my mom's place for about a week to recover after giving birth. But when I got home, I had a call from Oliver who hadn't contacted me once while I was in the hospital.
Where the hell are you? I called the hospital because you hadn't come home and they said you were discharged.
I am at my mom's place. I'll be back in about 5 days.
Get back here now. How long are you planning to slack off from cooking, cleaning, and laundry?
I had just given birth. I was in no condition to handle chores. I tried to explain this to Oliver, but he wouldn't listen. Finally, he sent me a photo of divorce papers, so I reluctantly prepared to go back. You're leaving already? Yes. My husband wants to see Amelia as soon as possible. My dad passed away early and my mom raised me by herself. I didn't want her to worry, so I lied. All right, then say hi to your husband for me. Will do. Perhaps, picking up on my guilt for lying to Mom and my anxieties about my impending marital life, Amelia began to fuzz in my arms. When I got back to Oliver's place, the house was a mess. He had clearly done zero housework.
Don't just stand there, start cleaning.
No words of appreciation for me or any interest in Amelia from my husband. I thought things might change once we had a kid. That faint hope vanished instantly. Feeling the emptiness inside me, I started cleaning. Housework took a long time in my still recovering state, and by the time I got to the bedroom, Oliver was already asleep. I quietly put Amelia in the crib, but she wouldn't settle down. In fact, she started crying all of a sudden.
Keep it down.
Annoyed, Oliver shouted from his sleep. I tried to soothe Amelia quickly, but she wouldn't calm down.
Hey, make her stop crying already.
She was just born. It can't be helped. Oliver's yelling only made Amelia's cries worse.
That's it. Both of you go sleep in the kitchen.
She'll catch a cold. He had chosen the kitchen, the furthest spot from the bedroom, but it was cold since it was near the entrance.
If I get sick from lack of sleep, how are you gonna take responsibility? I have work tomorrow. Now go to the kitchen.
Realizing that further conversation would be useless, I took Amelia and left the bedroom. As I left, I heard Oliver yell,
Who do you think is providing for you?
I couldn't find the words to respond, and tears flowed. A week had passed since I started living in the kitchen. Juggling childcare and household chores had brought me to my limits, and I constantly felt sluggish. One day, feeling exceptionally fatigued, I took my temperature and found it was over 102.2 degrees Fahrenheit. I urgently called my husband at work. Hey, I've got a high fever. I'm sorry, but is there any way you could leave work early?
What? You think I can just do that?
I just need you to look after Amelia while I go to the hospital.
Out of the question. You gave birth to her, you raise her. Plus, I don't want to catch whatever you got. I'm staying out tonight and you are paying for the hotel.
Oliver hangs up, mocking me as he does so. What do I do? What do I do? I can't master the energy to take action. I'm consumed by anxiety. Slowly, my thoughts become fuzzy and my vision starts to darken from the edges. Just before I lose consciousness, I hear Amelia crying. I'm sorry for being such a useless mom, I mumble in my heart. When I come to, I'm lying on my bedroom bed. My mom is next to me looking worried. What happened? That's what I would like to know. You weren't answering any of my calls. I came to check on you and found you collapsed in the kitchen running a fever. I was shocked. My mom says this in a business suit. It's a 3-hour drive from her home to mine. It's not a short distance, but she came as soon as her work was done. A sense of relief and shame brings tears to my eyes. What happened? Mom looks surprised at my tears, but quickly offers me a kind smile. I reach the breaking point of days of tension, and I burst into tears telling her everything about my marriage so far. By the time I finish, I'm calm.
You should leave him. For your sake and for Amelia's.
Mom advises. Amelia sleeps peacefully in Mom's arms. I have made up my mind about what to do. The next day, I'm feeling much better. Oliver was supposed to come back home instead of staying out, so Mom and I wait for him to return. Past 8 p.m., we hear the front door open and Oliver's voice saying,
Anyone still alive?
Mom probably thought his words were insensitive. She frowns and looks unhappy. Oliver comes into the living room and sees Mom. He starts to say something, but I cut him off. I have filed for divorce.
What?
I continue to speak to Oliver, who's standing there with his mouth agape, clueless. The divorce papers have been accepted.
What? What are you doing making decisions like that?
Finally, Oliver seems to understand the situation. You were the one who handed me the divorce papers first, and I'm going to demand alimony as well.
You can't unilaterally divorce me and then demand alimony. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
I could see my husband Oliver thinking,
If I just act confident, she'll back down like she always does.
I can handle it. We'll be billing you $80,000, by the way. My mom spoke up out of the blue. Oliver was surprised for a second, but then smirked dismissively.
$80,000 for a divorce retainer? No way. Oh, I get it. You're both just after my money because you think you can't survive without me, right? But sorry, I studied law in college. Your threats won't work on me. In fact, I'll be the one to get a retainer.
Oliver thought he had the upper hand and flashed an obnoxious grin. Why did I ever marry someone like this? I have no clue anymore. My mom is an attorney, I said.
What?
As if, to put the icing on the cake, my mom showed her attorney badge.
Is that real?
Oliver fumed at me.
You never told me your mom was an attorney.
I told you she works in a law firm. Oliver had apparently assumed my mom was just some secretary. As I spoke, he looked utterly baffled, like a fish out of water. We specialize in divorce cases, so we will certainly secure that $80,000, Mom said. We have plenty of evidence against you, too. Ever since I started feeling better, Mom and I had been gathering evidence. I laid it all out in front of Oliver, the bedding that proved we had been sleeping in the kitchen, insulting messages he sent via WhatsApp, divorce papers, and credit card statements. Finally, Oliver seemed to understand his situation. His face turned ashen.
This is all a joke, right? We can't be getting divorced.
I have been through too much for this to be a joke, I replied.
I'm really sorry. I didn't know you were so sick. Can we start over?
Oliver grabbed my hand. I almost pulled away but decided to look him straight in the eyes. He seemed hopeful. I forgot to mention, we will also be seeking child support, I said with a smile. His face looks like he was about to cry. Leaving him behind, Mom and I left the house with my daughter Amelia, who was now smiling instead of crying all the time. We eventually billed Oliver $90,000 for the divorce. While I was hospitalized, he had been gambling and wasting my savings, so we added another $10,000 to the bill. I had told the story to a former colleague, and it had spread throughout Oliver's company. Now he's socially isolated there. He's living frugally in an old, rundown apartment trying to save for the divorce and child support. Oliver once reached out, wanting to see our daughter. My answer was a solid no, followed by blocking his number. I never want to see him again. As for me, I live with my mom and daughter. We are so close, neighbors are jealous. On weekends, we all go to the park. Though Amelia is still young, I'll soon be working part-time at a law firm thanks to my mom's introduction. For Amelia, who's going to grow up and to give peace of mind to Mom, who will always be there to protect me, I want to work hard.